1% of dudes rapping, they ain't nice as me. 98% ain't live the same type of life as me. The judge gave me life and then they sent me where the life is be. That level 4 with depth and vice, the type of stuff they like to see. Two choices, fight or flee. I refuse to die a chump. I never been a mark, but damn, it's scary when that riot jump. I seen dudes cry, get punked, and some sexually brutalized. Knew a dude who lost his life and he was only doing 5 year-long racial fights when homie all you do is ride. Lonely days and nights up in a hole causing suicide. From the moment you arrive, you see the Mexican mafia, AB skinheads with big giant swastikas, pro-black philosophers, the BGF, the Kumi, and Muslims who will murk you from the nation to the Sunni. That MS was loony, quick to ride up on they rival. Even Christians went to church, hide knives up in a Bible. Political and tribal, the Crips and Damus, the Long Beach, the Hubs and the Dubs and the Grooves, the IE, the Bakersfield, the Dago Pyrus, the Hustlers quick to roll, the gangsters. Say what's cracking, YouTube? It's your boy 16 to life, and I'm back like I'm on a parole violation. Yard down. So y'all already know what it is, man. We back on our interviews, and I'm telling you, man, do not leave this interview. This is gonna be a great one right here, man. Me and this dude, it's an interesting story, to say the least, of how we met, how we got reconnected, all that, man. So anyway, this is Ruman Richardson. He has a new YouTube channel. It's called 28 to the Gate, and that's inferring to the 28 years he served on a life sentence. And now he's back. He's on the street. He has a second chance, and he also was known in prison by Diamond from Riverside, 1200 block East Coast Crip. First and foremost, homie, congratulations home. How long have you been out?
I've been out now like a year and like a few months. You know?
Yeah, so that's what's up, man. And so let me jump right into how we got reconnected, right? So now I got a homie, right? Some of you guys might have seen him on YouTube on a show called Chris College, the White Boogeyman or whatever. He's a white Crip. He has a friend who stays, I believe, in Texas somewhere. And so him and the dude in Texas, they got some business going on, some diesel truck driving by and stuff, type of stuff or whatever. So anyway, my homie had put me in contact with the dude to do something for him or whatever. So now the dude in Texas reaches out to me a while ago, and he says, "Hey, chill, I got a friend that has just been found suitable for parole, and he's coming home. What's the process? How does that work?" So I'm explaining the process to him because, of course, he's anxious about when, Diamond here is getting home after serving 28 years, right? So I explained the process to him, and I said, "Hey, homie, listen, also tell him, man, once he's out, I got this YouTube channel, so on and so forth. I would love to interview him, so he can come on here and talk about his experience, right?" And so he said, "Hey, chill." He says he already knows you, right? And I said, "Well, I don't know no Diamond. I ain't never ran across no Diamond." I said, "I ain't never ran across no Diamond from East Coast." Now, I'm from Riverside County. He's from the city of Riverside. So the dudes from Riverside, I would definitely remember because we are pretty much in close proximity, maybe about 30 minutes away, And so he said, "No, man." And so he goes on to talk about a situation. He said, "Well, man," he said, "he ran across you." And he goes on to explain a situation where I'm in another city with one of my homies. My homie happens to get into it with a dude who I went to school with, and Diamond and a couple of other dudes are with the brother who I went to school with. So now me and Diamond, we don't know each other, right? But my homie is getting into it with his homie. A fight breaks out, man, and then stuff gets extremely serious, man. And when I say shots is fired, I'm not talking about no sound effects, And so here we are, caught up in a situation, man. We don't know each other, but now it's then turned into an ugly situation where any individual on either side could have lost their life. We go on, we do what we do, we disperse. I never see Diamond again. And actually, I never even heard of him because, like I said, our altercation wasn't between us. We didn't get into it. So years passed, but now he happened, I believe, to know who I was because he was with the dude who I went to school with. So all this time passes, goes on so far, and then this is how we get reconnected. Now, Diamond, give him your story from your side on all that. When the dude tells you, "Hey, man, do you know Chill or whatever?"
Oh, well, yeah. He just asked me if I knew Chill, and I was like, I said, I heard of him. I wasn't really gonna give up too much information because I knew the situation now. So he was
Right.
just like, "Yeah, man," he said, "that's my people or whatever." He said, "That's like your family or whatever." So I was like, "Oh, okay." But I knew what transpired between me and you, and so I wasn't really finna say too much, but I was just like listening. And then when he told me he was your people, I was like, "Oh, okay." And then that's how I found out basically that it was you that we had got into it with. And he mentioned a couple other people. I don't want to say their names, but you know, and we went from there. And then that's when I realized who it was and all that. And then over the years, in prison or whatever, you hear people's name and all that. You know what I mean? So then getting out and then finding out this and then seeing this thing, and then my people told me about you or whatever, and he was like, "Oh yeah, I know this dude named Chill Whoop Whoop," and I was like, "Yeah." He said we got a little history,
Right.
So yeah. So I went from there, and now here we are now, all this time later. Now I'm getting out after all these years. You getting out after all these years, and now here we are helping each other out when we could have not been here or unalived each other because of some stuff that we did as kids. So
And that's crazy, right? And then also a little bit more information to the story. So I happened to see an interview. Somebody had got interviewed, a pretty well-known blood who done some time, and Diamond left a comment on that interview. Now, once again, I'm not knowing this him again. So he says, "Hey man, I done time with him. I done 28 years." So I leave a comment, "Hey, man, I would like to interview you." Once again, not knowing that it's the individual who I'd already, had heard about and this and that. So man, it's just crazy how the world works sometimes. It's crazy how the world works. And now, once again, like you mentioned, man, we're back in each other's lives again, and just trying to be better individuals than we was back in those times, man. So Diamond, you went to jail. You got sentenced to how much time?
I got sentenced to 26 to life. Mm,
How old were you at the time?
19 years old.
19 years old. And what year was it?
96.
In 96. So pretty much around the same time that I was in the county jail, because you had told me in some phone conversations that right after I left, you had came through there, or you had knew some individuals who knew me. You guys was having some discussions and so on and so forth. So it's crazy, right, to get sentenced to prison at 19 years old. You get 26 years to life. You gang banging, you doing your thing, and you get sentenced around a time when lifers was not getting paroled. So what was that like, homie, going to prison in that type of environment with that type of mentality that you was never coming home?
Well, at that time, my mentality was I had a weak-minded mentality. I was into my hood, I was into the gang life and everything, and that's all I really knew. So really, tell you the truth, it was like I didn't really know what to expect, but I knew that I had to go do the time because that's what they gave me. So it was more along the lines of like, okay, I got sentenced to this time, and I got to go do it, and I know that they're not letting no lifers out. Period. So I felt like I had to go in there with that mentality of, even if if you're not a predator, you got to think like one, so you don't fall prey to all the stuff that's going on around you. So you had to, be a certain way. And so I went in there with that mentality, and with that mentality, you know, I went in there with that, and it cost me to stay in there for 28 years of my life.
And once again, we want you guys to please go and subscribe to his channel. It's called 28 to the Gate. And Diamond is a little bit unique in the fact that he wants his page to be about mentoring to the youth, uplifting the youth, and helping them not make the same mistakes that he and I and so many other individuals have made throughout the course of our lifetime when we're being young and we fall to a certain type of thinking in the streets. And Diamond, let me ask you a little bit about why do you think, because I have ran across actually quite a few individuals, and they don't necessarily all create YouTube channels, but I've ran across a lot of individuals who had notorious, well-known names in prison, and once they get out, they are very interested in helping the youth. So why do you feel that is, Diamond?
I think what it is the fact that you know who else better to tell a youngster how not to get into what we got into, but somebody that actually been there, you know? And I think that going through the things that we went through at the time that we went through it, some of us wish that we had that, not really father figure, but just that role model that was more positive and tell us like, look, go left instead of right, or take this job, or go here, and you can get ahead instead of doing that. And a lot of times, whether we listened or not, I felt like I just wish somebody would have pulled me to the side and really talked to me and really like let me know that they cared. So now I feel like that's my job as a man, since I got a second chance at life, to come out and to be whatever my mama really raised me to be, because I wasn't what my mama raised me to be prior to this, you know? So now at the age of 48, 49 years old, now I'm able to be that man right now, even though my mama's deceased right now, looking at me from up there. I know now who I am and what I am as a man versus who I was before, following behind people and trying to be something that I wasn't. And that's what I think a lot of kids are lacking right now. I think a lot of these kids really want to find that family figure, and they're looking at it in the wrong role models.
And you know what? I think, honestly, homie, I think an individual has to be, or has to have been, a person with a life sentence to understand something that you said, because we hear people use this phrase, but sometimes it really doesn't sink in on us. You said, I'm getting a second chance at life. And so you guys don't know what it's like, man, sitting up in the courtroom looking at the judge. He tell you that, hey, man, you have been sentenced to 26 years to life. You got 16 years plus life. Then you go back, you 19 years old. I'm 21, 22. We go back with all these older Crips and stuff, and they telling us, oh, man, you ain't never getting out. So this is what we start to believe. And then you go to prison, and all these notorious names you've heard about in these gang tales and people talking about them, you look up and that's such and such. Now you on the yard with him, and all this stuff is jumping off, and you really never imagine coming home in 19 years. Man, when you're 19 years old, 5 years seems like a long time, much less 26 years. And so people really don't comprehend when you hear these lifers say getting a second chance at life, because that's what we really have, man. They have told us we was never getting out of prison. Then you're at this prison where all this stuff is going on, fighting, shooting, stabbings, killings, man. So you're not even knowing if you literally gonna make it to the end of the month sometimes. So it's just, man, I think that cannot be hammered in enough. Now, let me ask you, because I'm not sure, Diamond, but I know you've been at a lot of notorious prisons, New Folsom, Calipatria, things of that. Was you at Calipatria when, unfortunately, the brother Gumby unalived somebody in
Yeah, when Gumby unalived devil, yeah, I was there.
Right. And so, and this is what I'm just saying, not to hop on that topic there, but this is what I'm saying. This is the type of stuff that this individual right here was around. You're seeing people stabbed, shot, fights on the yard, people losing their life. You're a young individual, you're cripping, and you know that in order to be accepted, you have to act a certain way. You have to do what the Crips do. If you're a blood, you got to do what the Bloods do, or you might be victimized, and you still might be victimized trying to do. So I'm just give them a feel of what it's like, Diamond, being in those vicious type of environments.
It's crazy too that you spoke on Gumby right now, because I ended up being in the hole with Gumby when he was in the hole for that murder. And he was my neighbor in the hole. And he used to have books stacked up in his cell all the way to the roof, damn near, like all kind of different literature. And I went into I went to the hole because I got into it with a couple individuals, you know what I mean? And I went to the hole for that situation. And when I went to the hole, I ended up being neighbors with Gumby, and he ended up giving me some literature, man. So when I see him now on YouTube, and I'll be like, man, all that time you did and everything, his mentality is different from mine, though, but I respect the dude for the situation that he went through and everything, and stood tall through it and came out a man or whatever. But at the same time, though, too, at what point do you let the youth know that this is not cool no more? You feel what I'm saying? This is not cool, because what we stood for at one time is not what we stand for now.
Right.
And if you do stand for the same thing, then you did a lot of idle time in prison, because what you should have been doing was educating yourself and making yourself better. So when you got up out here, you can do different things and be a positive member in society versus coming back out here and being that same role model that led you to this situation. So,
Right.
you know, that was crazy that you just spoke on that. Yeah.
And make no mistakes about it, you know, because from time to time we will see Gumby on these interviews, and he's, you know, he sometimes might be in what dudes may call a street mode, but I have heard many accounts that Gumby is an extremely intelligent individual. So
Yeah,
don't get that part twisted. Like you said, he had a cell full of literature.
yeah, he's very intelligent and he's sharp, and he's one of the ones that talked me into set on a little situation that I had. I had went through the whole. I was drinking in prison, and I had got drunk on the tier, and I got into it with Dantana, which is a dude from Long Beach, and a dude named Matt from OVG. I got into it with these dudes on a tier, and these are two dudes that I respected. I always respected them and everything, but when you're off that alcohol and stuff, you know, all that goes out the window sometimes.
Let me just stop you right here real quick for those of you guys who have been watching my channel, keeping current with my channel. I did a story on Dantana, and I titled that story "The Biggest Crip That I Had Ever Seen." Because when I met Dantana, they had just took the weights. I met him in the county jail, and he had came down from prison, and he was a humongous crip. So go. I'm talking about humongous in size and in name. So go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, this was him. This is who he's talking about right now. And I got into it with this dude. Now I've been knowing this dude since the streets. I knew him when we used to be in Edgemont together back in the day, when I was younger as a kid. And it's a dude that I looked up to and respected. Uh, you know, but when, like I said, this is another reason why today I don't drink. This is another reason today why I don't smoke weed or get high. You know, because I know for a fact that if I wasn't inebriated or whatever, I wouldn't have got into it with these dudes. You know what I'm saying? Now, to make a long story short, you know what I mean? You know, these are people that I actually respected, you know what I mean? But at the time, you know, it was what it was. I was gang banging, they gang banging. I didn't care. They didn't care, you know what I mean? But we ended up squashing our differences. We got out the hole together, everything. We ended up on the same yard again together, everything. And it was all respect, you know. But now here we go all these years later, and I sit back and I can talk about this now and be happy with the way that I am now. But back then, I'll sit back and you dwell on things, especially when you're incarcerated and you're in prison. That's all you have time to do is think. So you sit back and you think about things, and things weigh on you, and you start thinking, I should have did something this way, or I should have did something that way, or whatever. And then that's what you do. You let the whole environment that you're in run who you are, and you don't ever think outside of that environment. And that's what I did for many, many years. You know, I thought inside that environment. Now I'm not a product of my environment. I'm a product of who I am now as a man out here living life and doing what I got to do for my grandkids and my kids and family. So, you know, that's
And
who I am today.
and that's highly commendable and respectable, homie. And I know a lot of times people tap into my stories for, you know, my channel for my personal stories, but keeping it 100, these are the things that I like to do most, man. I like to interview other people. I like to hear their perspective of prison, and I like to, you know, it's good to see an individual who was in the same position as I was, a lifer, come home. And so, man, you know, we've only got about an hour. Diamond's got some other things to do, but man, I would love to definitely, man, hopefully have him back, because these are the type of interviews that I even prepare for very little, because it's such a natural conversation, and there's so many things I'll be wanting to ask a dude, man. But what was it like after doing 28 years, homie, and then hearing, man, you're suitable, you're going home, and then finally being able to come home, because you're still fresh out. A year is still fresh out. So give us some of the things that you know.
Okay. Let me tell you, well, I got denied many times parole. So going to the board and them denying you, it makes you feel like you're doing life all over again every time you get denied, because you got to go back in these cells, and they tell you, say for instance, you get a 5-year denial or a 3-year denial. If you get a 5-year denial, you can go back within 3 years. If you get a 3-year denial, you can go back within a year and a half. Now, when they tell you that you're denied, it's like a heartbreaking situation, man. You know, because You got to go back in here and they tell you to be good, but you're around the worst of the worst in Southern and Northern California, period. They put you around the worst people in the world, people who don't think like how I think now, and some people who are still stuck in their thoughts. You can be a 50-year-old man, but still thinking like that 18-year-old boy that you got locked up as. You know, that's because you were stuck in your ways. And a lot of people are still stuck in their ways in there. It's a lot of educated people and it's a lot of people in there that shouldn't be in there. But it's a lot of people that deserve to be in there, man. You know, and the ones that don't deserve to be in there, I tip my hat to them and I wish them nothing but the best. And I don't wish that on nobody no more. So now I feel like I was, for many years, I was job security for the COs and all them. I'm never going to be that again, you know? And I really feel like in my heart that it's a lot of people in there that if they get the chance to come up out here, especially after doing decades and all the years that we done up in there, if a guy comes out here now and doing the same thing that he done before, then he didn't learn nothing. He let the time do him. He didn't do his time. So now being out here and being able to see people like you, Chill, you know, it's a blessing, man. You know, it's a blessing to see you and to know that, you know, you are doing something positive and being successful. You're letting people know what's going on in prison. You're letting people know the things that you went through, but at the same time, you're not glamorizing it, you know, because it's nothing to be glamorized. A lot of them dudes with them names and everything, you know, my mama used to tell me that if you never exalt man so high, he can never fall so far in your eyes. And now that rings so true to me because there's so many people that we put on pedestals. And then when they do something, you be like, oh, not him. Or, oh my God, I can't believe he did that. But he's not God. So we put him on a pedestal that he didn't ever belong to be on in the first place. You know what I mean? So now I don't put nobody on that pedestal no more. I try to put myself on that pedestal so my grandkids can look up to me and be proud of their grandfather. Like my granddaddy got out and he's working now. My granddaddy got out and he's coming to visit us and doing things with us. You know, even though I couldn't raise my kids because I was in prison, I raised them from prison, but now I can raise them, their kids, while I'm out now. And that's what I choose to do.
And you know, people watching, you know, listen to Diamond talk very intelligently, an individual that done 28 years, you know, because people always tell me, Chill, you talk, you're pretty articulate for a dude who's been in prison. So I think they think that, you know, you don't have educated individuals in prison, but you have many of them. And so as I'm sitting here listening to you, it's extremely hard for me not to interrupt because you are honestly dropping so many jewels in what you're saying. You know, it's just so many different jewels up in there, man. You talked about how everybody in prison, man, is not trying to come home, or at least they're not acting like they're trying to come home. Everybody doesn't want to change or whatever, for whatever reason. Some people have lost hope, you know, and so they are stuck in their ways. And you have to go back and program and do time around some individuals, or you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So when you go to the board, man, and you've already done 17, 18 years, and they tell you come back in 3 years, that's like a whole nother sentence, man. Come back in 5 years after you've already walked off 23 years. That's a long time. And so, like you were saying, it's damaging to the spirit to hear that. Then you got to go back with these 19-year-olds. Well, you got to go back and do time with these 50-year-old, 19-year-olds, if that makes sense. You got old dudes up in there still cousin and blood. You know what I'm saying? And so people just don't understand how hard that is. And then let me ask you real quick, because I know another good brother who he was at Cashapp around that same time. Do you happen to know Do Rock Creep or Creep from Do Rock?
Yeah, I know Creep real good. I know Creep real well. Yeah.
Okay, that's a good partner of mine too, man. And he has a channel that's called Swing Low Podcast. And I was with him in 1996 in Salinas. Shout out to Creep, man. And I'm gonna keep it 100. When I see him do his videos, it's hard to watch some of those videos just knowing that this good brother is still locked up in prison after all that time, man. That's you know, that's just something that's hard for me because I can empathize with what he has been through. Like I said, I was with him in 96. I believe he got to prison before that, but he's still in prison to this day. His mentality has changed. He has a lot of wisdom. And so it's just stuff like that is tough, man. But anyway, Diamond, what was it like?
You know what's really crazy? Let me speak on something what you just
Go
said
ahead.
right now. With Creep, I've been knowing him for many years in prison. I was in Calipatria with him for many years. And as a matter of fact, Creep was there when I got into it with Dantana and them. He was on a tier with me. That was one of my partners, man. He used to be with a dude named Stutterbox all the time. That was his partner. You know what I
Stutterbox,
mean?
that's my
And
partner from Angelo Mafia. Me and him was in the county jail together. I done told some stories about me and Stutterbox.
yeah, I know him. I know him real well. You know what I mean? And I'm glad that you said he got a podcast. I'm gonna go check his out now. You know what I
The
mean? Because
Swing No
that's
Podcast.
yeah, I'm gonna check him out, man, and let him know. He probably don't even know I'm out. You know what I mean? But that was a real good partner of mine. You know, Creep is a good dude, man, and I wish him the best, and I hope he has his chance to get up out here because it ain't nothing better, man, than being able to shower when you want to and go eat when you want to and drink cold water when you want to and walk outside and just
Hold
look
on.
at the sky.
Let me stop you right there, homie, and ask you to elaborate a little bit. And let me just hammer in that point. Like I said, for those who have never even been to prison, and let alone for 28 years, what is it like, homie, to be sitting up in there and just be craving for some McDonald's French fries, a piece of chewing gum, a cold plum, a soda, maybe a old school favorite candy, some now laters, being able to go to the bathroom when you want. People don't understand if you have not been deprived and had this stuff taken away from you, you don't know what it's like to be able to come out and experience that, man. Being able to just sit in the bathtub as opposed to taking a shower. So what is it like being able to come back now and just, indulge in whatever you like to indulge in when you like to indulge in it?
Okay, it's a beautiful thing, chill. And what's crazy is the fact that you still have some of your old habits by accident. You know what I mean? Like, my little brother, he's incarcerated right now, but he was out and psych, and he wore shower shoes in his wife's shower. He went in the shower. So she asked me, she's like, Diamond, why is he wearing these in my shower? Like I ain't clean or something. And I said, no, he ain't doing it. Like that's not the reason he doing that. I said he's wearing them because that's what we do in prison. You wear shower shoes when you go to the shower, and so he's used to having something on his feet, and that's not saying that you're dirty or none of that. It's just saying basically that that's what he's used to, you know what I'm saying? So, and there's a lot of things like that. But getting back to your question that you just asked though, is getting out now after all that time, I used to crave chocolate milkshakes. And since I've been out, I've been getting greasy, man. I've been eating everything that you couldn't have before, and I'm talking about, I've been eating everything except thank you, please come again at a restaurant, man. So I've been getting greasy. And
Right.
I gained weight and some old things. When I came out, I wasn't cut all the way up like I used to be, but I was cool, you know what I mean? And now I'm looking like Bobby Hill, but it's all good though, you know what I mean? Because I'm enjoying it, you know what I'm saying? But yeah, a lot of things that you crave in there, like sunflower seeds and different little things that you can't have, gum and stuff like that you take for granted on the street. Now that you are able to have it, it's like, I'll be like sometimes even with my cell phone, when I got my phone, sometimes I'll be feeling like I gotta hide it. You know what I mean? And because we were doing that before. We used to have to hide our phones and stuff. So like now, sometimes I remember I was driving and the police was next to us, next to my car. And I grabbed the phone off the thing and put it on the seat. Now, I wasn't talking on it or nothing, but I had it up on my little thing and everything. And just something told me, grab it and put it down. And then I started thinking after I drove off and I laughed to myself, right? But I was like, man, you got to stop that. You free now, man. You know what I mean? You able to drive with your thing up there, and different things like that. So getting used to things, it's taken a lot. Going eating in restaurants and being around everybody and not, you watching the door and watching people come in and all that. And the way these kids now talk to you, that's like one of my worst things right there. I'm seeing how they talk to their parents in stores and stuff. And I remember when I was a kid, you talked to your parents like you was gonna get your butt whooped. Period. Point blank. You was finna get hollered at. You know what I mean? It wasn't gonna be no wait till you get home or none of that. Now I see kids basically disrespecting their parents and all that. And that's one thing I can say that I respect with my daughter and her kids and my son and their kids. They're really on our kids to where they respect them, you know. And I think that that's what, you know, one of the reasons why I really want to help and mentor kids, because I want to let them know though too, like regardless of what you go through, or regardless of how old you get or how big you get or how hard you think you came from that woman and you came from that man, which is your father and your mama. So don't ever lose that respect for them. No matter what you do or whatever, don't lose that respect for them, and don't talk down to them, because when you're in situations like we was just in, my mama was the downest woman I ever had in my life, you know. So when she passed away while I was in prison, that was the hardest thing I can ever go through, because I couldn't be there for her funeral. So that was one of the hardest things. My dad passed away as well, you know, while I was actually on the phone with him on a
Mm.
video chat. We were video chatting. And my dad
Sorry to
passed
hear
away
that,
by,
man.
I think,
Yeah,
yeah, I
man.
mean,
Sorry.
you know, it's yeah, it was a sad situation, but it was something that happened, and I was just glad I was able to talk to them before they passed, you know, and I see them. So, you know, now I look at things a lot different, because, you know, all my mama used to ask me was, baby, do good and stay out of trouble so you can get home, so you can come out. This is not your life, you know. And now I feel like she's watching over me, so that's why I choose to do things the way that I do now, because I know she'd be proud of me right now, you know. So that's why I'm
And
doing the things that I'm doing.
you know, you tell stories about, or you talk about, you know, coming home and old habits dying hard and so on and so forth. And you may have people out there thinking, well, dang, man, you know, you're free now. You ain't got to do this. You ain't got to do that no more. But people fail to realize that 28 years, that's a lifetime. You have some individuals who don't even live, you know, 28 years, you know. And so to be set in certain type of patterns and behaviors for 28 years, that's a long time, you know. And so that's why sometimes we come home with some of these habits that we've done in prison. And not only were they habits, a lot of times they were certain type of, let me say, behaviors that kept us safe, that kept us alive, and so on and so forth, man. And so it's definitely refreshing just to hear you, you know, come home and express these things and share these things, man. What was it like being in there with some of the notorious gang names in the gang world that you've heard of, maybe in passing or whatever, and then all of a sudden you're on the yard with this dude?
Yeah, well, I I've been on the yard with quite a few of them, and I've been cellies with a few of them, you know. So I know I know what it is to be in there with the who's who of who's who, you know. So when I actually been around them, you know, and got a chance to know them or whatever, you know. And let me say this too: a lot of people with these names, they get their names only because they were put in a situation to have to act. And what they did is they act accordingly to what we stand for, as whatever we were standing for at that time. So a lot of these names come from that. These guys ain't no Superman, or they're not no big figures or none of that. What it is they got their name because of the fact they were put in a situation and they handled it accordingly. You know,
Right.
some people don't get put in those situations. You know what I mean? But one thing for sure is, if you do get put in a situation and you handle it accordingly to who you say you are or whatever, that's where you get your name from. Now, will I handle things that I handled in prison the same way I would handle now? No, not at all. Not at all. You know, because now I'm more of a thinker. Now I'm a little bit smarter. And I learned that all violence is a breakdown of communication, man. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's all it is. You know what I mean? If you learn how to articulate yourself, and then I learned too, this is my saying right here: never grace a person with your dialect until you learn their intellect. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of people was not worthy of you giving them your conversation, man. You know, because basically they're going to either feel like you're talking down to them because they can't understand what you're saying, or they're going to feel like you're belittling them, you know, or you're trying to make yourself bigger than what you are, you know, when in reality you're just basically me. I'm happy that I can articulate a conversation now, because when I first came to prison, I barely could read or write.
Mm.
So I had to educate myself while I was in there. So what I used to do is every time I learned new words and stuff, I would put them in a sentence. I would use them in a paragraph and stuff like that. And I was married, and my wife used to help me as well. You know, she used to help me as well, and I tip my hat to her. You know, she was a good ass woman. You know, and unfortunately, when I got out, I went to a situation or whatever, and we're no longer in that situation no more. You know, but I still respect her, and I respect our family. You know,
Right.
so a lot of people have things that they do when they're incarcerated that they try to fulfill when they get out. And one thing that I can say to anyone who's getting out right now or whatever, don't try to relive the past. Study on your future and focus on your future. You know what I mean?
Right.
Make your new world a better place, you know, because you already know what you did in your old world. You already know what you did. You know what I mean? And it got you the time that you had to do, you know? So why would you keep doing the same thing over again and expect a different result? That's insanity at its finest, you know?
Right.
So, you know, I'm glad to have this little platform to speak, man, because I've been wanting to do this for a long time, man. And for real, it's a blessing to be out here, and it's a blessing just to be able to be free, you know. And I wish this for anybody who really want it and who really need it and who really deserve it. But if you don't, I don't wish this on you, because all you're gonna do is come and be a burden to everybody else out here who's trying to live life. And that's how I feel about
Right. And so for me, I mean, I have the memories, but at times for me, it honestly feels like I never even went to prison. But I'll ask other lifers, other people who spent a considerable amount of time. And of course, everybody's answer is different. So now that you're home after doing 28 years, does it really feel like you've done the time, or how would you describe it?
Well, these gray hairs tell me I did that, right? I got little gray hairs right here that let me know that I done that. You know what I mean? Because when I went in, I didn't have no hair on my face. You know what I mean? Or none of that. Now, you know, I'm kind of, you know, getting thin up here. You know, I still got my little hair, but I'm getting thin on the top. You know what I mean? And you know, and I'm getting grays. You know, so and then looking at my kids, you know, I have a daughter who's 31, and I got two sons. One's 27, one's 26, and looking at them now, you know, is like, man, where did time go? You know? And
Right.
so now dealing with my grandkids, I don't want to miss out on their time, you know? So I try to do everything I can with them. And sometimes you fail. But one thing that I said I was going to do, and that's exactly what I'm going to do, is I failed miserably as a father being incarcerated and wasn't able to be there for my kids the way I was supposed to. And I'm not going to do that for my grandkids. I'm going to be there for them. And I'm gonna show them that your grandfather wasn't just somebody you seen through a glass or behind the wall or wrote letters to or waved to me through the visits or stuff like that. You know what I mean? Your grandfather is here, live and in living color, front and center like a TV dinner, and he love you, you know. Mhm.
Right. Most definitely, man. And that's one of the things that I enjoy the most about being home, just being able to chill, hang with family. A lot of people who watch my page know that I'm inconsistent when it comes to uploading, because sometimes, you know, I'll go do what I want to do. To me, it's more important sometimes than just relaxing, having fun. If it's you know, if it's just hitting the gym twice a day, spending time with my grandchildren or whatever, you know, I don't necessarily prioritize throwing up a YouTube video. You know, I know me and you, we've been trying to get this done for about a week and a half, 2 weeks. But sometimes life just, you know, life just takes over. You know what I'm saying? And so I'm just fortunate enough to be able to be out and just enjoy life, man. And so I know that you feel the same. You know, I know we wanted to discuss a few other things, some of the other prisons that you hit, but I see that we only have about 10 minutes left. So maybe we can get back to that at another time, because I definitely wanted to get into, because Diamond's stressing that he wants to come out, he wants to change, and he wants to really try to help wayward youth so they don't have to go down the path that we went down, because sometimes it's a cold, it's a hard, it's a lonely road. And to keep it 100, you take 20 kids who went through the stuff that we went through, everybody's not cut out for that, man. You might have 15 of those kids who fall off. it's a tough situation, man, just being lonely, sometimes having to fight, being willing to kill, stab, or whatever you have to do to survive. And it's not a cool thing, man. So Diamond, what are you specifically interested in doing?
Well, really, I want to mentor kids right now. I work two different jobs, but one of the jobs that I do work at, I work with the national championship sports, and I do the fields for the kids and everything. But when I do be around them, I talk to them and I try to, like, because they're all from all over the world. The kids come from all over the world, and they play their national championship sports here in Orange County, and I work for them. So what I do is I try to pull the kids to the side and I talk to them. And a lot of them don't know nothing about me. They don't know who I am or nothing. All they know is I do their fields and all that and everything. And then also at church. So just recently at the church, they found out who I was, because somebody from the church let them know who I was, or whatever, you know what I mean, and how long I was locked up. So it was like, it was kind of strange because the people because I was the church, the altar boy. So I used to take people to their seats and everything, you know what I mean? For like months I done that. And they didn't know who I was. And then they told them who I was and how long I was incarcerated and everything and all that. And then I noticed when I went back to the church that next Sunday, people were like, "Are you okay? We didn't know that." And I was like, "Oh, I was like, yeah, I'm good. I don't want you to look at me different now, whatever." They were like, "No, baby, we just didn't know that you done time in prison and done all that time." So they were very accepting of my situation and everything, but it just made me feel, because I was trying to hide that part from people because I didn't want them to know that. But my thing is, that's part of my story. That's part of who I am. You know what I mean? So why hide who you are? If you want somebody to accept you, you want them to accept you for you, not for who they want you to be.
Right.
And that's one thing I'm learning, to be comfortable with who I am as a man. And being comfortable is knowing that I have a past, and my past is really that in the past. This is my present. So yeah, that's
And
what it is.
And let me ask you a question, and I'm pretty sure this probably, this probably dawned on you a time or two. You said that you work with some sports organization or whatever, and so when you're out there doing whatever it is that you do, does the thought cross your mind at times that some of these kids wasn't even born when I went to prison?
No, not some of them, all of them.
None of none of
Because
them, right.
I work with from 11 youths to 14. So
Okay.
all those kids is 11 to 14-year olds. You know what I mean? So there's no in betweens on that. And none of them was born when I was here. And a lot of their mamas, you know what I mean, was my age or something like that. You know what I mean? Are younger than me. So it's like they're like my daughters in them age now. So yeah. It's I look at that a lot, and then I think about, like, I never played on no organized teams or stuff. So when I see these kids, I be looking like, you guys don't understand the blessings that you have to be able to do this. You know what I mean? At a young age, because I was real good in basketball. That was my thing. I was a basketball player. I was a little point guard. You know what I mean? That was my little thing. And I always wanted to play organized sports, but it just so happened that either I was in camp, a hall placement, and went from there to prison and all that. And I never actually utilized my talents in sports and actually played for, organized ball. So
Right.
when I see it,
Let
I,
me sorry to cut you off. Let me get in a quick question because I know you have to go pretty soon. So let me ask you, because when we first go to prison, right, and we are caught up in the gang
yeah,
banging activity and this and that, or at least let me speak for myself. When I first went to prison, I'm caught up in the gang banging activity. I'm seeing all this stuff. Basically, homie, that stuff was fun to me because this was the life that I asked for, and I wasn't tripping. But if that was true for you as well, at what point did being in prison start getting old and you start thinking like, dang, man, I didn't threw my life away?
I'm gonna tell you when it stopped being fun. It stopped being fun for me when I seen somebody that was real close to me, that I was real close with, get his whole throat cut out
Mm,
because of a mistake he made.
mm.
and it hurt me, because this was somebody that I was real close with, somebody that I was real tight with, and I knew he had it coming, and I couldn't say nothing. You
So let
know
me pause you
that
right
this
there.
is
So So by the laws, by the gang laws that we live by, and the code that we're under, basically, you knew that he had violated that, and so basically, among those codes, and he had this treatment coming to him, and it's
Yeah.
unfortunate a lot of times, especially when you're on some of these more serious yards. Sometimes there are no favoritism. Sometimes sometimes people get a pass because of who they are, but sometimes that they don't. So basically, by the code, this dude had something coming, and so you couldn't warn him, but you still didn't want to see it happen to him.
Yeah, I didn't want to see it happen to him, but I know that he violated what we stood for at that time, and 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 I knew what was going to happen, and it hurt me to know that and have to be around this individual for days and not be able to like warn him or tell him or nothing, because that will be putting myself at jeopardy as well. You know what I mean? And and some of these individuals that stuff happened to, like you were mentioning the I seen on one of your little things where you were mentioning the 50-50 yards. A lot of people don't understand that it's a lot of dudes over there that are not over there because they're scared, are not over there because they're really punks, are not over there because they're gay, are not over there for any of those type of reasons. But a whole yard is against you. If a whole yard turns against you, you have no choice but to protect yourself, and it. So when they say, oh, these guys on these other yards, these PCs and this and that, I know some dudes that's over there that's really about that business. I mean, they really about that. They're not just punks, and they're not, and they're around maybe other people that you might not put yourself around or whatever, but that doesn't make them a punk or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So when
Right.
dudes be sitting there and they're, oh yeah, all them dudes over there, they woo woo, they woo woo. You have some cold dudes over there, man. That's really with the business. You know what I mean? And when I say with the business, I say what we used to stand for, because we don't stand for that no more. Not even on the main lines, people ain't standing for that. So it's a lot of things that's going on right now in prison that didn't go on when I first came. So we were in a doggy dog world, you know. So we had to be a certain way, you know. That's why now you could accept being out here and be happy with just being free, you know. And that's where I'm at with it now. I look back on that stuff, and don't get me wrong, it was a time when that used to excite me. I used to raise my hand for everything. Somebody had it coming, I want to be the one to go get him. I want my name to be known. Yeah, I got him. You know what I mean? I hollered at him, or I did this, or I did that, and not because nobody made you raise your hand back then. They didn't make you raise your hand. You did it because you wanted to. You wanted that name. You wanted that recognition and all that, you know. But now I want that recognition as being a man. I want that recognition as being somebody who's take care of his family, who loves his family, somebody who people can count on, some people who they can trust you and know that you're going to come through for them. That's what I want to be known by now. So I raised my hand for that now instead of for the old stuff. You know.
Right, most definitely, homie. And so, listen, I'm gonna let you get up out of here. But listen, I already know I definitely want to have you back as soon as possible, as soon as your schedule will allow, because it's just, it's a few more things I want to discuss. You guys also be sure to go tap in to his channel. It's called 28 to the Gate. It's a new YouTube channel, and he's gonna do on there things that he wants to do. He wants to mentor the youth, he wants to help, and he wants to talk about things that he wish individuals would have basically talked to him about, and so I think it's going to be a great channel, man. Diamond, it was a pleasure. I mean, it was an extreme pleasure having you on here, homie. Like I say, I love these type of interviews where I don't necessarily have to prepare for anything, and we just have a natural conversation. And it just, by me doing time as well, I'm always intrigued and also, enjoy hearing the experiences of others, homie. Thank you for blessing my platform with your experiences, your knowledge, your wisdom. And it's always refreshing to hear an individual who at one point in time was really with the business, because Diamond was really about that life, just change his life, come with a new way of thinking, and like you say, grow into a man.
Real talk, real talk. And on my channel, just to let you guys know, I have a lot of animals and stuff on my channel because I live on a farm now, and so I take care of animals and stuff like that. So if you go on my channel, you're gonna see me playing with the horses. You're gonna see me with the goats and different stuff like that. And that's just what I started my channel with, but I'm going to get into different things. So, I appreciate you guys subscribing. Thank
All right, most definitely, homie. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe.
you.
Continue to be a great grandfather to your grandchildren and enjoy life, homie.
And bless you too, Chill, man. And keep doing what you're doing, man. It's a positive thing.
Yes, sir, all the time.